My brother-in-law, who is married to my sister, confessed to my wife that he was in love with her. That revelation set off a chain of devastating discoveries within our family. Just yesterday, without warning, he asked my wife to meet him for lunch, claiming there was something important he needed to discuss. When my wife told me about his invitation, she seemed curious but not alarmed. She wondered aloud if it might have something to do with my sister, speculating that perhaps they were going through a rough patch, and he was seeking a woman's perspective. The entire situation struck me as strange. He had never approached my wife in this way before. Though he often texted her and other family members about routine matters, this felt different. Still, given how close our family was, I didn't dwell on it too much. We had always leaned on each other in difficult times. I told her to go and see what it was about, brushing aside my unease. She agreed and planned to meet him at a cafe near her office the following day. That morning, as she got ready for work, she brought it up again. She admitted she still wasn't sure what to make of it. Her voice tinged with uncertainty. I reassured her that it probably wasn't anything serious. I told her to hear him out. And if it turned out to be something we needed to address, we would handle it together. The cafe was bustling with its usual lunchtime crowd, which helped put her at ease. She arrived a bit early and chose a table by the window where she could watch the entrance. He walked in a few minutes later, visibly more anxious than she had ever seen him. They began with small talk, catching up on work and family. But once their food arrived, he took a deep breath and revealed the real reason he had asked to meet. He started by complimenting her appearance. Initially, she assumed he was just being polite. But then he continued, telling her she had always been a radiant presence in his life. That she stirred emotions in him he had never felt before. His voice wavered as he confessed that he had fallen for her the moment they met. He claimed he had loved her from the start. That if she were his, he would cherish her as she deserved. He said he would give her everything, that she should be treated like royalty. My wife sat there, stunned. She could hardly process what she was hearing. This man, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, and the father of her children, was baring his heart to her. He poured it on, painting a picture of a life they could have together. He said he had suppressed these feelings for years, admiring her from a distance, convinced they were meant to be. She attempted to interrupt, tried to stop him, but he kept talking over her, as if he had rehearsed it all countless times. To be fair, he had always been friendly with my wife. Our family spent a lot of time together, and he had always played the role of the fun uncle, the dependable guy at every family gathering, every holiday meal. He texted my wife frequently, but the messages were always innocent, updates about the kids, coordinating plans, routine stuff. There was never anything inappropriate or suggestive. He even kept in touch with my mother in the same casual way. Their rapport had always seemed normal. We never had reason to suspect anything. To all of us, he had been a genuinely good guy. Someone we trusted completely. Hearing my wife recount what happened felt like a blow to the stomach. She didn't let him finish. She stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly behind her, and walked out. Her hands were trembling as she called me and told me everything. While we were still on the phone, the messages from him began. At first, they were full of apologies. He claimed he didn't mean it, said it was just infatuation, expressed regret for making her uncomfortable. But the damage had already been done. She left work early to come home and talk to me about it, her phone buzzing nonstop with his calls and messages. I told her to answer one, to put him on speaker so I could hear. He was crying, begging her not to tell my sister. He kept saying it was a mistake, that he had misread the signals, that he thought she felt the same way. Apparently, over the weekend when we were all together, he believed my wife had been flirting with him. He said there was a moment in the kitchen, just the two of them, where he felt a connection. My wife can be sharp, even intense. And I can see how someone might twist that into something else. But this was beyond anything we could have imagined. He asked if she had told me, and I answered for her, since I was on speaker. Then he started pleading with me too, begging us both to keep it quiet. It went on like that for a while, him begging, us listening. What I really wanted to know was whether he had ever cheated on my sister before. He swore he hadn't, swearing on his kids' lives that it was only my wife. Just her, he kept saying. At that point, I'd had enough. I told him I wasn't going to do anything tonight and that I'd call him tomorrow. And now here we are, sitting in this mess, unsure of what comes next. My wife says we should go over there right now and tell my sister, but the thought of tearing her family apart is gutting me. Thinking about what this will do to my nieces makes me feel physically sick. I know the right thing to do is to tell her, but I keep thinking about my wife too. None of this is her fault. But I know there'll be resentment. Even if my sister doesn't divorce him, even if they somehow move past this, I don't see how we can ever be the same again. This entire situation could destroy everything. I don't care about him. He tried to shatter my family, but I do care about everyone else. Update. Everyone who told me I couldn't wait to tell my sister was right. A little after midnight, I got a call from her. She sounded shaken, said she needed to tell me something. My stomach dropped as she explained that her husband had just come to her, claiming my wife had tried to start an affair with him. He twisted everything. Made it sound like she was the one chasing him, trying to lay the blame entirely on her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her immediately that it wasn't true and that I was on my way. This wasn't something we could handle over the phone. I ended the call and, without hesitation, phoned my parents. I woke them up, quickly explaining the situation in sharp, clipped sentences. My father was livid. My mother was stunned but firm. They agreed to head to my sister's house to stay with her kids, to be there for her when she needed them most. Then I called my younger brother. He answered groggily, confusion turning into alarm as I told him what was happening. He said he'd come over to our place and stay with our kids so they wouldn't be alone in the middle of all this. His calm presence would help them feel safe. Meanwhile, my wife was already packing her things. Her face was pale, drawn tight with dread. She knew the confrontation was inevitable. We left in a hurry, the drive to my sister's place feeling endless. The silence in the car was suffocating, both of us lost in thought. When we arrived, the tension outside was even thicker than I had imagined. My sister was on the front porch with my brother-in-law as we pulled up. He looked defeated, eyes cast downward, his whole posture sagging under the weight of what he had done. He knew we had the messages and voicemails, evidence he couldn't deny. I truly don't know what he thought he was doing when he called my sister in the middle of the night with his lies. Maybe he believed he could control the narrative, get ahead of the truth and shift the blame, but it was a pointless attempt. As we approached, the air seemed to hum with tension. My wife was trembling, her expression tight with a mix of fury and heartbreak. Without a word, she handed my sister her phone. My sister took it, her grip steady, though her eyes burned with anger and pain. She began scrolling through the texts, her face growing harder with each one she read. Then came the voicemails, undeniable proof of his guilt and her rejections. Before she could speak, my brother-in-law broke down. He started sobbing, loud and messy. This was a man who charged into burning buildings without fear. To see him like that, cracked open and desperate, was jarring. His sobs were deep, guttural, full of shame and dread. It felt surreal. This once stoic firefighter was now shattered by his own choices. My sister's expression didn't change. Her silence cut deeper than anything she could have said. She waited, unmoving, until he finally ran out of tears, reduced to soft, shuddering breaths. Her voice was cold and level when she finally spoke. Pack a bag and go. I can't stand the sight of you. He tried to protest, to explain, but she stopped him in his tracks. There's nothing you can say to fix this. She turned away from him and stepped toward my wife, wrapping her in a hug. The embrace was firm, a moment of shared strength in the middle of everything falling apart. They had been best friends since college, and that connection hadn't wavered. Seeing them side by side brought a small sense of relief, a glimmer of unity amid the chaos. That left me standing with him. He was wrecked, eyes red and puffy, face streaked with tears. He looked to me, searching for understanding, maybe forgiveness, but I had nothing to give. His voice cracked as he tried to speak, but I cut him off. You need to leave. This is your mess. You deal with it. He nodded slowly and disappeared inside to pack. My sister and my wife stayed close, whispering to each other, holding on. The rest of the night blurred. Conversations ran together. Plans were made. We all focused on helping my sister figure out how to move forward, how to shield her kids from the worst of it. Eventually, she began asking questions. She needed to know why he ever believed there was a chance. Why did he think my wife felt the same? She was adamant there had been no problems in her marriage. Everything had seemed fine. My wife was crying by then, tears streaming down as she tried to explain what even she didn't fully understand. Her voice shook as she spoke. There's nothing you haven't seen. She handed my sister the phone again, and together they combed through every message exchanged in the past 2 years. One by one, they read through them, searching for signs. Any trace of blurred boundaries. But there was nothing. Just my wife being who she always was. She has a playful personality, always joking and teasing. It's part of what makes her so lovable, so easy to be around. My brother-in-law shares that same kind of humor, and for years they've had a light, harmless way of bantering. She's like that with everyone, my mom, my younger brother. It's just how she connects. The only moment my wife can recall that might have been misread happened just this past weekend. She begins describing it, trying to pinpoint where things might have shifted. They were all at our place, and she and my brother-in-law both reached for the fridge at the same time. They laughed, nudging each other playfully to get there first. He let her win, stepping aside. But then he reached around her waist to grab a beer, his hand moving slowly. She admits that, in that instant, something about the gesture felt off. It passed quickly, and she dismissed it, not wanting to create unnecessary tension. Now she wonders if staying silent gave him false hope. My sister listens closely, her face softening. She doesn't hold my wife accountable. She knows her too well to think her warmth was ever anything more than kindness. It's not your fault, she says gently, and my wife nods, though the guilt is still written all over her face. As they finish reviewing the messages, there's no question. There was never any attraction, no coded messages, no subtle invitations. My wife had just been herself, and my brother-in-law twisted that into something it never was. The damage caused by this misinterpretation is overwhelming. But one truth remains, my sister still believes her. Then she turns to his MacBook, determined to know what else has been hidden. Her hands shake as she types, anger and fear competing in her chest. She guesses his password. On the third attempt, she's in. Taking a breath, she begins searching, combing through files for any piece of the puzzle. It doesn't take long to find something unsettling. In a folder with a deceptively plain name, she discovers a disturbing cache of photos. They're all of my wife. Not group shots, not candid family moments, just her, always her, carefully isolated. The images span years. As she clicks through them, her anger turns to dread. One set stands out. A few years ago, we went on a couple's trip to the Caribbean. No kids, just adults. My wife, feeling relaxed and confident in that setting, wore a bikini for the first time in years. Normally, she chose more modest options, but that week, she felt safe enough not to. There are nearly 50 pictures from that trip alone, each one taken without her knowing. My sister goes pale as she scrolls through them. It's clear he's been quietly collecting these images. Quietly obsessed, lurking just out of frame at every gathering. What began as inappropriate has turned into something much darker. She whispers the question none of us want to answer. Is this now restraining order territory? This has crossed a line, past infatuation, past confusion, into something else entirely. The air in the room feels heavier. My sister calls us over and shows us the folder. My wife gasps, recoiling, her hand covering her mouth. She had no idea, no sense that he was watching her like that, tracking her, archiving her. My sister is quieter now, the fire in her replaced by cold resolve. She talks about next steps, legal options, safety measures, protecting her kids, a restraining order. We're all still processing the truth, still stunned by what's been unearthed. The man we once trusted, who we welcomed as family, has revealed something dark, something none of us saw coming. This is no longer about temptation or betrayal. It's about obsession. It's something else entirely. Unfortunately, the mess didn't end there. My sister agreed to confront her husband last night, determined to hear the full story from him directly. She insisted on involving my wife in the conversation, hoping the presence of both women would prevent any half-truths or revisionist explanations. They arranged a FaceTime call with my wife, and I listened off camera, my chest tight with a growing mix of anger and dread. My sister, ever meticulous, recorded the entire conversation. The moment the call began, the tension was suffocating. My brother-in-law appeared worn down, his eyes red and puffy from crying. His voice trembled as he began, but soon, the truth came flooding out in a way none of us had fully anticipated. He admitted it plainly, he's been obsessed with my wife for years. It started the day I met her, he confessed. His words barely audible. He explained that it was during one of those early gatherings, before he and my sister had become serious. She had brought him along to meet her circle of friends. My wife and I were dating then, but he had seen her before I ever introduced her to the family. What he initially brushed off as a harmless crush slowly transformed into something far more insidious. He spoke of the way she laughed, The way she carried herself, how simply being around her captivated him. He tried, he claimed, to bury those feelings, to convince himself they were meaningless. But instead, they festered. He began finding excuses to be near her more often, offering to help with family events, starting conversations under flimsy pretenses. It was a gradual descent. And eventually, he began convincing himself there was something mutual beneath it all. He believed, somehow, that she might feel the same. My sister sat silently as he spoke, her face unreadable, but her fury simmering just beneath the surface. My wife, by contrast, looked shell-shocked. The weight of hearing how long this obsession had gone on, how deliberate his actions had been, left her visibly shaken. When he finally fell silent, the pause that followed was deafening. My sister's voice cut through it, cold and precise. "What made you think my wife would leave me for you?" He faltered. He muttered something about supposed signals, misconstrued moments that he had twisted into evidence of shared feelings. That's when the dam broke. Both my wife and my sister erupted, years of suppressed anger, confusion, and betrayal boiling over in a torrent of shouting. The argument escalated fast. The rawness in their voices, my wife's fury laced with disbelief, my sister's with cold finality, made the room feel like it was closing in. The screaming was intense, the pain in every word unmistakable. My wife couldn't take it any longer. Shaking, pale, she ended the call. Then she turned to me, her eyes brimming with panic and heartbreak. "It was one-sided," she said, barely able to speak. "Always one-sided. I never believed otherwise," I told her. Even if, at some point, she had found him physically attractive, I knew she would never let it become anything more. That's not who she is. She's always taken fidelity seriously. It was one of the first things she made clear when we started building our life together. This entire nightmare had been a twisted projection, a dangerous fantasy he had clung to, convincing himself of a reality that never existed. And now, the consequences of his delusion had left the rest of us picking up the pieces. Early in our relationship, there was a moment that perfectly captured her stance on trust and fidelity. I remember watching her one morning as she was getting dressed, admiring her quietly from across the room. She caught me looking, smiled playfully, and asked if I liked what I saw. But then her expression shifted, serious, almost cold. "Never fuck up," she said, her tone sharp and final. "Or you'll never see this again." She meant it. Every single word. My wife doesn't play games when it comes to trust. Once it's broken, there's no stitching it back together. Sitting there, reliving the chaos of that call, I couldn't help but think about my brother-in-law. I'd always known he had an arrogant streak, this swagger in the way he walked, this inflated confidence, but I never imagined he thought so highly of himself that he'd actually believe he could pull off something like this. His delusions were staggering, completely untethered from reality. I spoke to my sister later, once the storm had settled enough for us to talk without yelling. She was focused, steady, already thinking ahead. Her priority now was protecting her children from the fallout. She told me she'd be contacting a lawyer first thing Monday morning to understand her options, how to limit his access, how to keep their world from crumbling any more than it already had. "As far as I'm concerned, he's not living in the same reality as the rest of us," she said, her voice calm but cutting. She wasn't trying to save her marriage anymore. That ship had sailed. Her mission now was to shield her kids and preserve whatever stability she could salvage for them. My brother-in-law returned home yesterday, not because she wanted him back, but because she couldn't legally stop him. Despite everything, he still has a right to be in the house until the legal wheels start turning. So now they're stuck in this uncomfortable limbo, breathing the same air but saying nothing. The silence is heavy. The damage is done, and I think he finally knows it. There's this hollow look in his eyes, like someone who's just realized the dream is over. The lawyer told my sister that given his documented behavior, there's a strong chance she'll get full custody. The texts, the voicemails, the disturbing collection of photos, all of it paints a clear, undeniable picture. And he doesn't even seem to want to fight it. It's like he knows he's lost, like he's too tired to pretend anymore. My sister will be fine. She's stronger than she looks. Whatever love she had for him, it's gone now. She moves through the house with quiet determination, every step a statement that she's choosing her children, choosing herself, and leaving him behind. She doesn't look broken. She looks free, like someone who's seen the truth for the first time and decided never to look away again. The kids don't know the full story yet. But they know something's off. They always do. Kids feel these things, even when they can't name them. Their father was barely around anyway. He was always at the fire station, picking up extra shifts, sleeping there more often than not. His absence was a permanent fixture in their lives, something they'd already learned to live with. But once the truth comes out, it'll still hurt. The illusion of normalcy, of two parents under one roof, even if fractured, that's about to end. My sister knows this. She's already spoken to a child psychologist to help prepare them for what's coming. She's bracing for the hard conversations, the tears, the confusion. She's ready to be both mother and father if that's what it takes. As for him, he stays in the guest room now, a quiet, fading presence in a home that no longer belongs to him. He walks the halls like a ghost, going through the motions, no fight left in him. It's a sad, pitiful sight, watching him shuffle around like a ghost, but my sympathy only stretches so far. Some of my friends suggested there had to be more women, more victims. That someone as obsessive as my brother-in-law couldn't possibly have fixated on just one person. But as far as we know, there hasn't been anyone else. Just my wife. His fixation has been singular, intense, all-consuming. After everything came to light, she blocked his number, trying to carve out some space to protect herself from the weight of his attention. But that same night he returned home, he sent her an email from a freshly created account. It opened with what looked like a genuine apology. But it didn't stay there for long. What followed was darker, more unhinged. He wrote that he never got to finish what he meant to say at the restaurant that day, as if there was more he needed to confess. Then the floodgates opened. Paragraph after paragraph about my wife. About her smile, her laugh, the way she talks to people, the desperation, the emotional spiral, the sheer madness of how deeply he'd convinced himself there was something real between them. He claimed there had always been a magnetic pull, some kind of unspoken chemistry. He mistook kindness for invitation, friendliness for flirtation. He spun a fantasy out of nothing, and then believed it was truth. It was chilling, every word. He even dragged me into it. The final stretch of the email was dedicated to me, his supposed rival. I didn't realize just how low his opinion of me was until I read those words. He was convinced I wasn't enough for her, that I didn't make her happy, that she deserved better. He took shots at everything, my looks, my demeanor, my presence, implying I was unworthy. It wasn't subtle. It was designed to hurt, to shake me, to plant doubt. But it didn't. Instead, it cemented something in me. I saw the depth of his delusion, the way it warped his judgment, the way he saw me not as family, but as a barrier. And it made one thing absolutely clear. I needed to protect my wife and my family from this man. We forwarded the email to my sister and her lawyer. It's now part of the record, more evidence of his instability, another brick in the wall we're building to keep him out for good. That message, twisted as it was, might be the key to getting him removed from the house permanently. For now, we take it day by day. Our friends and family have been incredible, checking in, offering support, reminding us that we're not going through this alone. It helps more than I can say. My wife isn't at her best right now, but she's getting better, slowly. She blames herself for letting her guard down, for being too relaxed around him. Normally, she keeps strict boundaries, especially with men who show too much attention. But with him, she felt safe. He was family. She never thought he'd take things this far. It's been a relief that she and my sister are still close. There's no bitterness between them, no blame. That bond hasn't broken. We'll be okay. It'll take time, but we'll get there. I want to thank everyone who reached out, who listened, who cared. My main concern from the beginning has been my sister and her children. They didn't ask for any of this, and the damage his actions have caused in their lives is enormous. Their safety, their emotional health, their future, that's where our focus is now. Kids need stability. They need to feel safe. And when something threatens that, you can't afford to wait or hope it resolves itself. You have to move. You have to act. We didn't hesitate. We gathered everything, confronted it, brought in the right people. Because waiting, hoping it'll just go away, that's how more damage is done. In the end, this isn't just a story about betrayal or mistakes that can't be undone. It's a reminder that sometimes, the real danger doesn't come from strangers, it comes from the people we trust the most. My family is still healing, slowly but surely. The wounds run deep, but they're not beyond repair. We've chosen to move forward, to protect one another, to love harder, and not let one person's darkness steal the light from our home. If this story resonated with you, If you're drawn to the quiet complexities and hidden truths within families, make sure to subscribe. Sometimes, hearing someone else's story is all it takes to feel a little less alone on your own journey.